welcome to the What's Up News Network, being broadcast from Panama City Beach, Florida, the home of the world's most beautiful beaches, and only 323 miles from Booga Holler, Georgia, the center of the universe, where most of the people are so good they have to hold on to the blackberry bushes to keep from being drawn into heaven. I am Jim Free with Jim Free Realty. Please click on the red subscribe button just below the picture. On this Independence Day, I would like to remember one of my ancestors, General Lackland McIntosh, who is remembered for his service with General George Washington in securing our independence from the British. Unfortunately, he is also remembered for killing Button Gwinnett, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, in a duel. Each man was wounded. McIntosh recovered, but Gwinnett died. Both men are buried near each other in the Colonial Park Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia. Some of the stories coming out of Booga Holler. After 35 years of marriage, my cousin Wanda Sue and her husband Harold decided they needed family counseling. Not wanting everyone in Booga Holler to know their business, they decided to drive to Atlanta. When asked what the problem was, Wanda Sue went into a tirade listing every problem they had ever had in the years they had been married. On and on and on. Neglect, lack of intimacy, emptiness, loneliness, feeling unloved and unlovable, an entire laundry list of needs she had endured. Finally, after allowing this for a sufficient length of time, the therapist got up, he walked around the desk, and asked Wanda Sue to stand. He embraced and kissed her long and passionate, as Harold watched with a raised eyebrow. Wanda Sue shut up, quietly sat down in a daze. The male therapist turned to Harold and said, "This is what your wife needs at least 3 times a week. Can you do this?" Harold said, "Well, I can drop her off on Mondays and Wednesdays, but I fish on Fridays." Well, another story out of Booga Holler. This goes back several years. My Uncle Ben had a nagging wife who had made his life miserable. The only real peace that he got was when he was out in the field with his mule plowing. One day, when he was out in the field, Ben's wife brought his lunch to him. Then she stayed while he quietly ate, and she berated him with a constant stream of nagging and complaining. Suddenly, Ben's old mule kicks, striking his wife in the head and killing her instantly. At the wake, Ben's pastor noticed that when the women offered their sympathy to Ben, he would nod his head up and down. But when the men came up and spoke quietly to him, he would shake his head from side to side. When the wake was over and all the mourners had left, the pastor approached Ben and asked, "Why was it that you nodded your head up and down to all the women and you shook your head side to side to all the men?" "Well," Ben replied, "the women all said how nice she looked and her dress was so pretty, so I agreed by nodding my head up and down. Then all the men asked, 'Is that mule for sale?'" You know, as I've gotten older, I've noticed the waitresses treat me a little different. Occasionally they will call me honey and darling. At first I was flattered. Then I realized they no longer consider me dangerous. And the older men they really like are Ben Franklin, Hamilton, and Jackson. I tried telling them I'm not 80, I am sweet 16 with 64 years experience, but that didn't work. You know, I have no problem with the background checks that they have in the new gun law, and while they're at it, why don't we do the same thing for immigration and voter ID? Medical alert. Heads up. If you're feeling sick and sweating while filling up your vehicle with gas, you may have car owner virus. The CDC has issued warnings about monkeypox virus, and the World Health Organization is considering changing the name because monkeypox might offend some folks. However, the test is now available. In the national news, and close by, a convicted felon, Melvin Williams Jr., has been arrested by the Atlanta police. Williams has been charged with the murder of Brittany Macon, 26, and injuring a fellow worker, Jade Statham, 24, at a Subway store near the Mercedes-Benz Stadium after he became enraged because they had put too much mayonnaise on his sandwich. Of course, he had a violent record and was out on bond. The Supreme Court has made its decision in Roe v. Wade, and no doubt you've seen, heard a lot of news articles, a lot of experts. This is something that most Christians have been praying for over 50 years. The battle is not over. Satan is still working. President Biden has announced today that he wants Congress to do away with the filibuster and pass Roe as the law of the land. My view on abortion has evolved over the years. When I graduated from law school 55 years ago, I was taught that life begins at quicken, or when the mother can first feel movement of life. I had never seen an ultrasound of a child in the womb. When my wife was pregnant with my daughter and son, I did see them with the help of ultrasound. I will admit that the ultrasound was of such poor quality I could not recognize the features that my wife and other women seemed to be able to identify. But I did know that it was a child that God had entrusted to us. And even though my wife provided shelter and nourishment for 9 months, the child belonged to the Lord. As my Christian life evolved and science evolved, so did my views, and now I believe that life begins with conception. Why would bacteria on Mars be considered proof that life was there, but when a heartbeat on Earth is not proof of life? Now our prayers have been answered, and many babies will be saved. We need to put feet on our prayers. We, as the body of Christ, need to do the following. We need to support the women that decide in favor of life. Many of these are young mothers in their teens, and they need financial, emotional, and medical support. We need to work with government and non-government groups to speed up the adoption process and bring the cost down. We need to work with our state representatives to improve the foster care program. Most of our foster care parents are good, loving foster parents. Excuse me. But there are a few in it for the money and are just warehousing the children without love and sometimes abusing them. The employees of the Family and Children's Services have an impossible task of checking on the children because their caseloads are too great. Now let's move to the January 6th committee. The January 6th committee was called back in session to hear from a star witness, Cassidy Hutchinson, who had been an aide to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and whose job had been to accompany Mark Meadows to meetings to take notes. I watched her testimony as a witness, and I think I can speak with some authority, having testified hundreds of times as a witness in criminal cases in state and federal courts during my 37 years in law enforcement. In every case, I was cross-examined by a defense attorney. I have also testified in a number of civil cases and have always been cross-examined by the opposing attorney. Cross-examination is a vital part of our justice system. It is a way to keep witnesses truthful and to expose both sides of an issue. Cassidy Hutchinson appeared to be a very nice lady. However, her testimony appeared to be worthless. She testified to second and third-hand hearsay. She was unable to tell what had been exactly said to her. Her testimony was paraphrased because she would attempt to quote someone, and then she would start the sentence with, "They told me," something to the effect of. She did this repeatedly throughout her testimony, something to the effect of, "It seems strange that someone whose primary purpose was to have taken meticulous notes of what everyone said in meetings, but did not take notes of what she witnessed and heard on January the 6th. There are 9 members of the January 6th committee, 4 of which are attorneys: Zoa Loffring, Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, and Jamie Raskin, who also teaches constitutional law. None of these attorneys seem to have a problem with their witness testifying to hearsay or the fact that she could not be exact in her testimony. I found her testimony to be mostly gossip. It reminded me of a story I once heard from one of my pastors. He said he was in the checkout line behind 2 ladies at Walmart. The first lady said she thought her neighbor was running around on his wife because he was coming in late at night and had been drinking. The second lady said, "Well, tell me more." The first lady said, "I have already told you more than I know." When I think of the January 6th committee, I think of kangaroo court. And in case you're not familiar with what the definition of a kangaroo court is, this is what I found. A kangaroo court is a court that ignores recognized standards of law and justice, carries little or no official standing in the territory within which it resides, and is typically convened ad hoc. A kangaroo court may ignore due process and come to predetermined conclusions. I will let you decide. Until we meet again, may God bless you, your family, and this great country that we live in.